Cool, kia ora tātou. I'm Michelle Atkinson. I'm also part of the Research and Evaluation Office along with Dom, Brooke, Alan, and I think that's about a third of the audience. I'm talking about the evaluation of the Counties Manukau Health Consumer Council that I finished last year. So basically, the Consumer Council is to increase kind of patient or consumer participation, which bridges the gap between people who lead and design services and the people who actually use them. So there are up to 13 volunteers who use Counties Manukau Health Services, and the chair is also one of those volunteers. It's supported by the Patient and Whānau Care Advisor. They meet monthly and staff come to the council, present to them about the project or the service they're doing, and the council give advice. So we're calling the staff who come to present presenters. The Consumer Council requested the evaluation. So here are the evaluation questions and what they wanted to know. So the main questions are: to what extent is advice from the council being applied in the project? What have presenters learnt from the interaction with council members? What are the key strengths and weaknesses of the Consumer Council model? What subjects have been presented to the council since their work commenced? And what services have been reached? So as you can see, there are sub-questions, and we'll address those as we go through as well. So here's the methodology. So firstly, we reviewed council documentation and literature. So the documentation was to see things like who had presented, how many, what happened in meetings, things like that. I completed semi-structured interviews with council members. So 10 out of 12 council members participated. Semi-structured interviews with key informants, so the Patient Whānau Care Advisor, leadership at Counties Manukau Health, and all 4 participated, giving me a score of 100% participation. And sent a survey to people who had presented to the council. And so out of 34 that we could identify, 19 completed the survey. I don't know what happened. So the qualitative data was thematically analysed, and other data was summarised. Limitations, obviously the number of presenters responding and the small numbers in general, and some of the documentation was hard to interpret. Okay, so the first question is: to what extent is advice being applied? As you can see, half of presenters said that the advice from the council had some influence, and another 22% said that it extensively influenced their work. What advice is being applied and why that particular advice? So firstly, how to engage with consumers. Secondly, user input on specific resources, so giving feedback on a document or something. Thirdly is how to promote consumer engagement at Counties Manukau Health, so things like sound bites or quotes as to why people should engage with consumers. And fourthly, the council challenged some really basic assumptions about engaging with consumers and what they would like. So what one presenter said is, what we thought was good practice does not mean that for the consumer. Barriers and enablers to applying advice. So enablers were the council's professionalism, the fact that their advice was useful, balanced and specific, the diversity of the members, the depth and breadth of their engagement, and when presenters engaged at the right time in their project, that was an enabler to the advice being useful. Barriers is there was confusion around the role of the council and organisational limitations. Question 2 is, what do presenters learn? So, interestingly enough, a big theme was they learnt the value of the council. That wasn't me. They learnt the value of the council. And how to work with the council was another learning curve. And then more specifically, they learnt specific things about the consumer perspective, how to engage with consumers, and they learnt that the council existed. So most of them said that they shared what they'd learned with other staff. So the council model, the key components are actually, I'll just add in, so the presenters also completed a Likert scale on their it was retrospective, but they were asked to score it for before they engaged with the council and then afterwards, and it showed improvements across all 4 domains, which were understanding how to work with consumers, confidence engaging with consumers, how much they valued the voice of consumers, and whether or not they would engage again in the future. Okay, so the council model. So we constructed this model from the themes that came through in the qualitative analysis. So there are 4 areas, which are member attributes, sustainability, leadership and support, and accountability. And 2 of them are strengths and 2 of them are opportunities to develop. So with member attributes, that's talking about the council members' diversity, their skills, their teamwork, their dedication to engaging with consumers, and that they are keen to develop the council. Leadership and support was another strength, and that's so from the chair of the council and the patient whānau care advisor, they collaborated, they supported members, and they proactively engaged staff to come and present. And Counties Manukau Health Leadership was also identified as being supportive by establishing and promoting the council and opening doors. Accountability was one area to develop, so that includes monitoring and evaluation, needing something for that, needing a feedback loop from presenters to actually let the council know what has happened with their advice, and acknowledging the council for their work. And the 4th area, which is one to develop, is sustainability. So having more strategic approaches, embedding the council in the organisation, building the evidence base, and strengthening documentation. So question 4 and 5 are addressed together, which is what services and subjects have the council worked with. So they've worked on whole of system projects like the Counties Manukau Health Strategy, patient experience, things like Patient Experience Week, population health and health promotion projects such as the Health Equity Campaign, and with some specific services such as end-of-life care. The level of engagement. So what presenters found really useful is that they engaged at different depths and breadths. So all presenters would come to meetings and engage with the whole group at a relatively superficial level, and then sometimes there would be a group of council members who would go to a workshop, so more depth, less breadth, and then for example, there were a few individual council members who would be long-term members of a working or steering group, so having that really deep engagement. In order to foster more engagement, we found increasing council visibility, being more proactive about inviting presenters to come, the organisation providing the council with more resources, and there being a feedback loop and accountability as to how the council advice has been used. So our recommendations are reviewing the terms of reference, developing a strategic approach to identifying areas of work, supporting the members, such as with professional development, creating a strategy for fostering meaningful engagement with the council by staff, developing ongoing monitoring and evaluation framework, having a sustainability strategy, and reviewing operations and logistics. So just before I finish, the learnings from that really obviously are what Counties Manukau Health can do to improve the council's model and increase its effectiveness. More broadly, patient participation is still a relatively new field. There isn't a lot of information about best practice or really any literature published. So this will hopefully, when we publish it, contribute to the emerging body of knowledge about effective and meaningful consumer participation. Thanks very much to my team, to Renee Graves and to Lynn Ma and all the participants. Any questions?